Hello, my name is Dominic Johnson. I work for WordPress design and build agency Mirror Media. We are organisers of Tunbridge Wells WordPress meeting. We meet the first Thursday of every month in the centre of Tunbridge Wells, Kent. Tonight I'm going to be talking about APIs, and this is acting as an introduction to the subject of APIs. Subsequent talk will be on REST API, and in particular in using REST API in WordPress. So the contents of this talk: what are APIs? I find a good way of understanding what APIs are and how to use them is to use a service like If This Then That. So I'll be doing a demo of the If This Then That service. Then I'm going to talk briefly about what REST API is on WordPress, and then I'm going to give you a REST API example. So, what is the definition of API? So it's an application programming interface, and the rather formal definition is a set of subroutine definitions, protocols and tools for building application software. In general terms, it is a set of cleverly defined methods of communication between various software components. In short, I like to think of it as two computers can talk to each other using a set of rules. Another definition is the part of the server that receives requests and sends responses. And yet one more, a way of computer servers and programs to talk to each other. That's probably the clearest, but really you should understand a little bit more when I go into the examples. Here is a diagram of basically what I've explained. This is an app, website or whatever, your service, and it requests data, and the data is either posted, get, put, deleted or customs, various sets of commands, and the data is then sent back and action is taking place. Examples of how you could use APIs. You could fetch the weather for your website. You could have a little widget in the corner that says the weather, number of degrees in certain towns. You could fetch the news. You could go off to a news service like BBC or The Sun and fetch the news from that and bring it back on display it on your own website. You can update new records in a database, so tying two databases together. You could do something like you could fetch the current odds for a particular horse race. You could get the price of an insurance policy for a user, and services like GoCompare use APIs all the time to go off to various insurance companies to fetch the data. Or you could get the football scores. So, If This Then That. It's a website and you can create applets. There are other services like Zapier, create recipes. And if I just do you a very quick demo, you can see here I've got a couple of applets. This one will tweet every time I send a tweet. So that's my Twitter ID, Dominic J. Johnson. And it includes retweets and replies. I then add the event to my calendar, my Google Calendar. And then another one, if the wind speed at pure water where I sail rises above 9 miles per hour, it writes a record into my Google Calendar. And you can see both of these are on, and then there's another one here that's off. So let me go and quickly demo this. So here's my homepage for If This Then That. And if I click on this one, you'll see it's a very, very simple plain English recipe. If new tweets by Dominic Johnson, then write to Google Calendar. So if I just create a new one, very simple. Click on this. So what's going to happen? What's the situation that's going to trigger this? So if I put down the weather again, if today's weather at 12 o'clock, I'm going to create a trigger. So all that's going to do is fetch the weather at 12 o'clock every day. And then what do I want to do with it? Well, I want to email it to myself. So here I pick the applet the service for Google. I'm going to send an email, and it's going to be sent to Dominic at Mirror Media, and I'm going to put in some various other information. This is the format of the email, and that's it. I'm going to create the action. And there we are, just created an applet, very, very simple applet that fetches the weather every day and emails it to me. And you can see how all these different services can all be tied together to do various events. You can trigger on certain other conditions and you can do other actions. So that is what an API is and how it's being used. If I just flick back to my presentation. As I say, there's also other services like Zapier. I just prefer this than that. So going on to REST API on WordPress, well, what does REST mean? It means representational state transfer. And really, it's just a way of moving data to and from in WordPress. So again, another definition, a RESTful API is an application program interface API that uses HTTP requests. And this is the significant part. REST API is using HTTP, so it's transferring over the internet using HTTP. And all it can do is it can get data, put data, post data, or delete data. They're the only commands it can do. Another significant part why we're talking about it in relation to WordPress is the significance to WordPress. And this quote I picked up earlier, anyone paying attention to Matt Mullenweg's public appearances over the past 12 months would have noticed the steady beating of one particular drum, the importance of WordPress, JSON REST API to the future of the platform. It was REST API up until quite recently. We used to be a plugin, an additional plugin that was an optional plugin. It's now become part of core. It's that significant and that important to WordPress. Now I've got a quick example of how Mirror Media used REST API. Our client built their conference website with us, and a part of the conference website is an agenda. And they wanted to take that agenda and make it available offline using an app. So we partnered with an app company, and the app in the background requests if there are any changes from our database, and if there are changes, it sends the database back to the app. Every 10 minutes it's polling, and we do nothing at all unless we react to a request, with the request being, is there any new data? And then if there is, we send that data. In this particular example, it's a server-based environment, so they are doing that in the background, writing to a database, and then the API is pulling from their own database. It could alternatively be an app on the client side, it reacts, it talks to the back-end database. So I just want to quickly show you what the actual data looks like, because hopefully it will be, you'll understand the makeup of it. What's really useful about the REST API is it's very easy to read. You can see the data being read. Wait a second, it will turn a sec. Google renders this into a much more usable format. And so you'll see all the data, there we go. And you can see that it's very, very structured, and all the data is just sent in a very clear way, and every single piece of information is sent. And then it's a case of the back-end service pulling this data and doing things with that particular piece of data. So it's very, very easy for you to explain to a marketing person that the data is not there or is not reacted, and for them to see it. So that's how we use it, and that's how we'll continue to use it moving forward. That's it. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.